And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, February 11th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by No House Advantage. 7-game slate coming up here, coming off of the trade deadline. There is a lot of ambiguity for this slate right now. It's going to take probably the afternoon before we find out what's going on. So make sure you're watching the deeper dive and live before lock tonight. Before we do anything, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, I got to ask you right now. I don't care about DFS performance yesterday, although if you won, we should definitely talk about that. I want to know your I want to know your thoughts on the biggest deal yesterday. How do you feel seeing Kristaps Porzingis become a Wizard?
I'm excited about it. I'm happy about it. I mean, Dinwiddie wasn't on a good contract. Like, again, I don't know much about contracts. I know his wasn't good. I know Bertans was awful. So getting off of those is nice. And then obviously Porzingis has his own set of issues and his own not great contract, but there's at least still like star potential there. I mean, he's good when he plays. Whether he's as good as you think he should be is a different question. But like you're getting, an actual potentially useful piece. It's not like, bringing in Russell Westbrook because he's the only person that matches John Wall's contract. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. I guess the only negative I'd seen, I think, I don't remember who somebody pointed out on Twitter because I don't really know what the Mavs were doing.
No idea.
And someone pointed out that it is easier in theory to move two less big contracts individually than it is to move Porzingis by himself. So, I mean, I guess that's like the one drawback, but yeah, like it's not, it doesn't do anything to make the Wizards like more likely to win a championship anytime in the near to medium future. But I mean, it at least makes it likely that they are either A, enjoyable to watch or more enjoyable to watch, and B, if like Beal leaves and you end up trading Porzingis for picks or whatever, then cross that bridge when you get there, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a little bit easier for Dallas to just do other deals down the line. If you think that you can rehab Davis Bertans, if you just want to get out of the Kristaps Porzingis business, I get it. It doesn't seem to have worked to this point.
Rehab
so why
Davis
not?
Bertans? You mean like lock him in a gym and make him shoot until he remembers how to do it again?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That sounds about right to me. We'll see where this ends up with Dinwiddie, whether or not Jalen Brunson ends up coming back to Dallas. Porzingis has been solid enough this year, 56% true shooting. You're obviously getting solid defense, decent rebounding, clearly an excellent shot blocker. He's shooting 28% from three this year. He shot 38% from three last year. If that rebounds, I like it. I just don't understand why the Wizards continue to collect centers.
Yeah. The one nice thing is Bryant and Porzingis can at least like get out of the paint. At least,
I don't think Bryant's going to be gone after this year anyway. So
yeah, and Gafford can't. But
no,
that is some serious rim protection though between him and Gafford.
Yeah, it's like the homeless man's version of the Cavs, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the poor man's Mobley Allen. And I guess the way I see it too is just like, even though obviously I think Porzingis is like 26 now, so obviously he probably is just what he is, but there's a better chance that 2 years from now you're saying like, holy shit, Porzingis finally became this star than you're ever going to get with Dinwiddie or Bertans.
Do you think Bradley Beal is a Washington Wizard next year? Player option for next season right now, $36 million. Does he take the option? Does he opt out and re-sign with the Wizards? Or does he just not take the player option and sign somewhere else?
My guess is he takes it.
Okay.
Especially coming off of a poor year with the injury too.
Wouldn't be surprised.
It's not like he was playing great and people were clamoring like, God, I can't wait to get Beal away from the Wizards. Like, obviously teams still want him, but he kind of had plateaued and wasn't playing that well anyway. Plus, he's never wavered from wanting to be there. No. In theory, bringing Porzingis in is a piece that he can work with. Yeah. I would think that having Kristaps Porzingis is more exciting to Bradley Beal than having Spencer Dinwiddie.
You would think. We've got a couple teams now that have a little bit more cap room for next year. The Pistons, as it stands, have about $25 million. The Pacers have about $25 million. He's not leaving
the Wizards to go to the Pistons.
I'm just going through all the teams that have all the cap room. He's not doing that to go. Although, to be fair, like, that is an interesting team of Cade, Beal. Jeremy Grant didn't go anywhere. He's still good. Whatever you think of Isaiah Stewart, whatever draft pick they get this year, like, it's more plausible than it should be.
Logically, though,
he's not doing it.
Right. Like, that's basically, they're not going to be better than the John Wall Wizards, basically. Or, they could be, but you're not, like, at best, he's putting himself in the same situation he's played his entire career.
Yeah, I totally agree. It would be an interest, like, he would fit perfectly going to that team. It's not happening. He's not going to Indiana. Memphis has some room. It's not going to be enough, like, could they create enough room to sign Beal? Sure.
That's kind of spot where I could see maybe him going to.
Right. If you have to get off a little bit of money, I think you could pull something off if you wanted to get Beal to like 30 million. Orlando, he's just not going there, but they will have the money. Portland has carved out about $20 million in cap room next year. I can't imagine that's what they want to do. Just run back the two guard experiment.
I was going to say Portland would essentially be running back Lillard, McCollum, and Beal would be running back Beal Wall.
Yeah. And then the final one that I actually think is interesting, they now have roughly $30 million in cap room for next year. The San Antonio Spurs. You've got Murray as the lead guard. You've got a young Jakob Poeltl, at least as of right now. They've got a ton of additional young pieces around there. It is a team and a culture that most people would like to go to. I don't think that that's happening. I think he just re-ups with Washington too. That's an interesting one to me.
Yeah, somebody said the Celtics can open up a max spot this summer. That would be the most logical.
They're expected to be $9 million over the cap. That one's not happening. They've got $28 million on the books for Tatum. They've got the non-guarantee for Horford next year, which I believe is $14.5 million at the minimum. You've already got Jaylen Brown in for 28. You've got Derek White now on the books for 16, Marcus Smart for 17, Robert Williams for 10. If you are trying to open up a slot for Boston, that is not happening without moving at least one of those main pieces. And you're going to need probably more than that. So Boston has no chance at that.
All right. Well, so now that we've confirmed he's going to Boston.
Yeah, that's just not happening. They can't even get even remote. Brown's got to go. Basically, for him to end up in Boston, it has to be a sign and trade. They cannot free up $30 million in cap space. Anyway, fun trade deadline. I'd talk to you about Simmons and Harden, but I mean, we could either do 45 minutes on that or 2, because the amount of question marks coming out of that deal are plentiful.
Yeah, and I can't handle reading any more Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin starting at center for the Nets takes.
It's preposterous conversation.
Like, I mean, I think they probably will in the regular season, or at least like
none of it matters in the regular season.
They won't close; they'll start, and then we'll have chat whenever that happens. Say, "See, I told you." But then in the postseason, like, they're not playing center.
No, you can't. I mean, the amount of people that when it first came out were freaking out on the stream, being like, what does this mean for the Sixers now they don't have a backup? It's like, I don't think that the 8 to 10 minutes that Andre Drummond's going to play in a competitive series per game at best is a thing that we should be worrying about.
Yeah, I think
if Joel Embiid's not playing 38 minutes a game in the playoffs, you're not winning the NBA title, and who gives a shit about Andre Drummond?
Right.
Like, they're not playing Embiid 28 minutes a game in the playoffs because they need to get Drummond out of there. He's a straight backup at this point. It's wild. Beal to the Knicks. They got to cut a couple people to pull that bad boy off. I'm fascinated by it all. Anyway, let's dive into this slate. The amount of question marks that we have right now are staggering. So Charlotte Hornets are 6.5-point favorites in Detroit, 224 total. Charlotte got off of Ish Smith, shipped him back to Washington. So that dude just bounces around the league in a weird way. We still have no Hayward, no Cody Martin, no Jalen McDaniels. I don't know if Montrezl Harrell is going to be available to play today. I don't know if any of these dudes are going to be available to play today. It's totally up in the air. I know Daniel Tice is going to get his physical later today. Derek White is getting his physical right now, like as we're doing this show. Don't know if he's going to be available. Boston has like 9 guys on their actual roster right now, which doesn't make a ton of sense. But what I do know for Charlotte, whether Montrezl Harrell is playing tonight or not, we're doing the same thing we've been talking about. Ball, Bridges, Rozier, Oubre, maybe PJ Washington, and we can talk about that in a second. But Ball, Bridges, Rozier, and Oubre, we're just playing a ton of them again.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much the same thing as we talked about the other day. Again, keep in mind that while a lot of guys on Charlotte are going to look good here because of the playing time, they are just in real terms more expensive. And so, even last night I had said I probably wouldn't play more than like 3 Wizards, even though they were really cheap. Even more so with a team like Charlotte, because it's still just very difficult for like 4 of these guys to all put up 40 to 50 points at the same time. But getting to 2, maybe 3 of these guys in lineups is going to make a lot of sense. LaMelo is still very, very clearly underpriced. I think he's the top option here, and I don't think it's particularly close. But then you still get Bridges, Rozier, Oubre all playing a ton of minutes at affordable salaries as well.
Obviously, you don't know if Montrezl Harrell is playing today, but let's assume that he can. Is the expectation then that we're going to get a split of Plumlee and Harrell at the 5, removing PJ Washington from that equation?
I'm not sure. So Nick Richards played 13 minutes last game. Those clearly become Harrell.
Yeah.
Plumlee only played 27. So you got 40 minutes total, give or take, between those two.
Obviously, Montrezl Harrell slightly better than Nick Richards.
So the other thing, Ish also played 14 minutes.
Obviously, that goes straight to book night.
I don't necessarily think that's the case.
Do you think they're going to go to 7-man rotation?
Yeah, that's what they've typically done.
When
they're short, they've done that before.
I think the minutes that we've seen from Ish Smith over the past 3 games just immediately becomes the minutes that James Bouknight gets, whatever that is, some sort of combination of 8 to 14.
I don't think that has to be the case because if Harrell plays, I'm saying if Harrell plays, you can go 26 minutes to Plumlee, 22 minutes to Harrell. That's the 48 center minutes. Now PJ Washington's getting all of his run at the 4, which means that Bridges can play more at the 3, which means that Oubre plays more at the 2. Rozier is the backup point guard. Do
we think that PJ Washington will get a lot of run at the 4 in that scenario.
I don't think he gets 34 minutes, but
right.
You can give him 26, 28.
Okay. To me, he's the hardest guy to peg down. Like, we don't know what happens with Harrell and Plumlee, but they're not bouncing up and down the positional spectrum. We just can't know how many minutes each one of those guys play yet. That's a complete question mark. Washington is the guy on this where it's just like, what happens here?
Yeah, and basically the way I'm thinking about it, because like I agree, Book Night could certainly take the Ish Smith minutes, but basically like if we're assuming that Harrell plays and that Harrell plays meaningful minutes, doesn't just take Nick Richards 12 minutes, you're basically saying, are the Hornets going to choose to play Book Night, or are they going to choose to play PJ Washington for like decent minutes? I assume the answer is PJ Washington.
I mean, I don't know. I lean more towards Book Night.
I thought PJ Washington was getting traded as soon as they got Harrell, but that didn't happen.
I thought it could have also just been Plumlee on the way out too.
Sure.
I thought someone was getting traded, and I didn't think those someones were Ish Smith and Vernon Carey. But I guess it was Ish Smith and Vernon Carey. Yeah, look, if Harrell's not in, it's all moot. We pretty much know exactly what they're going to do, at which point you're playing all of the same guys that we've been playing anyway. But Harrell's status affects PJ Washington pretty big, and I don't think it matters for James Bouknight. I don't think we're playing him either way.
So somebody in chat said Bouknight running point will be not ideal, rather stagger Rozier. They're going to stagger Rozier.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of excuse me.
Well, Adam's dead.
Yeah. I don't even know where that came from. They're staggering Rozier anyway. It's just a matter of, is Bouknight on the floor alongside him, or are they running a bigger lineup and playing PJ Washington at the 4?
Yeah, they've got enough people that can like mildly handle the ball. They have one point guard on the team, and everybody else is just like functional enough. The real problem here is that there's no Gordon Hayward to actually be the pseudo backup point guard, but it doesn't matter. It's Detroit. It's Charlotte. We're playing a ton of Charlotte.
Yeah. So I say LaMelo Ball is clearly the top option on the team, and somebody in chat immediately says, is Ball not playing?
Yeah, he's unquestionably the first option that you want to get to. He's 8,400 on FanDuel. Yeah,
just insane price tag. I mean, this is like a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy that is likely to play 36 to 38 minutes at least against the Pistons, which, although John Morant didn't know it, is a very good matchup.
Rozier also 6,400 on FanDuel, point guard, shooting guard. Already, both of those guys projected for about 45% ownership.
Yes,
and for right now, by the way, Harrell is not in the DraftKings salary file as of right now.
John Campbell, I think, solved it. It did come from my chest. He's right there.
Nailed it. Detroit Pistons. So they shipped out Josh Jackson and Trey Lyles yesterday, bringing back illustrious former Duke Blue Devil Marvin Bagley. He is also, a lot of these guys just not in the DraftKings file. So Marvin Bagley not there. He's 5K on FanDuel. We don't know the status of Cade Cunningham still. I don't know, like, my immediate thought was, oh, now that the deadline's over, he'll be in. And it's just like, well, Cade Cunningham had no effect on the trade deadline, and that's not why you sit him. So I don't know what to do with Cade. He's 6,700 on FanDuel. I will be playing quite a bit of him if he happens to be in. Jeremy Grant still has his stupid price on FanDuel at 5,200. We're projecting him for 40% ownership in this dream matchup against Charlotte. I'm running that right back. Kelly Olynyk looks pretty interesting. Flat minimum 3,500 on FanDuel, power forward center. He's 4K, same role on DK. I don't know if we get Bagley or not. I don't know if that they make Bagley the straight backup center in the Trey Lyles role and just change that. We'll see. What do you like from Detroit? Because it's unfortunately a spot we got to go to.
So Jeremy Grant is the top option for me. You mentioned this FanDuel price tag, but even on DraftKings, he's 6K. And we had talked about it before. Even if Cade Cunningham's out, I don't necessarily think that's a huge bump for Jeremy Grant. We haven't seen it be so far, both in terms of production and rates. I think, maybe over a larger sample, you start to see the rates go up a little bit. But also, I just don't really think Jeremy Grant's that guy that is going to just, go be a fantasy monster regardless of who's on the floor. But it's still a really good matchup. He's still likely to give you 32 minutes or so. It's a good price tag. All of that looks good. The Kelly Olynyk piece is really interesting to me because he played 20 minutes yesterday. He was still basically just Isaiah Stewart straight backup. And I thought there was a decent chance that would be the case yesterday, but at the cheap price tag, it was still worth, gambling there. And, basically, even if he got 18 to 20 minutes, he was probably going to be fine. And there was the chance that he would play more minutes. At 4K here, I'm interested to see what happens with his ownership, because if he's not popular, I'm interested in going back. Like, you're still talking about probably 20 minutes or so against Charlotte. Certainly a ceiling there, especially if he happened to play a few more minutes. But one thing that really concerns me about yesterday's rotation isn't just that he didn't play alongside Stewart. It's that Stewart got in foul trouble in the second quarter, and they went to Luka Garza instead of giving Olynyk more minutes. So it almost makes me think that they have some sort of limit on how much they want to play Olynyk.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I was a little surprised that they went to Luka Garza, so that concerns me. He's just tricky. 30% for Kelly Olynyk on FanDuel is not going to be something that exists by the time we get to lock. I don't know how you could actually project him for that. Just seems like the easiest place to get away from. There's no tell. He could just play 20 minutes and it's not good.
Right. He's cheap enough where if he plays 20 minutes, he can still do damage, but I don't want to play somebody like that at high ownership. If he's low owned, I'll gamble. Right. But again, the thing that really concerns me is when you typically talk about the Kelly Olynyk, backup center, good point per minute type plays, the reason they're interesting in tournaments is that you're basically just saying there's one guy ahead of them. And if they happen to get in foul trouble or whatever, you can really quick pick up 4 extra minutes for this really good point per minute guy. If the Pistons are saying we are only playing Kelly Olynyk 20 to 22 minutes no matter what happens, then obviously you lose that volatility that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Anything else here we want to touch on? It's a weird team today.
Yeah, I mean, Bay is kind of always fine. Stewart's playing a lot of minutes when he's not in foul trouble. We know that he can obviously just have a massive game against the Charlotte front court, but I don't really see much as priorities. If Cunningham's out, you can go back to a $4,300 Corey Joseph. That would be fine. Sure. Bay looks better if Cunningham is out. Mostly, though, I think with the exception of Jeremy Grant, I think it's just a bunch of secondary plays.
$3,400 Frank Jackson at no ownership if Cade is out?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else for the Pistons?
Nope.
Very important game today. Make sure you guys
if Cunningham's out, Diallo is 4,600. He would look good.
There we go. NFL strategy show coming up immediately after this at 11 a.m. We have the Yahoo NFL show at 1 o'clock. We have the NHL strategy show at 2 p.m. Prize Picks NFL show at 4:30. Adam is back for the NBA Deeper Dive at 5. We close today out with NBA Live before lock at 6. We have the NBA player rankings, NHL projections, and MMA pro plays. Big UFC pay-per-view coming up tomorrow. All of that content is free for you on Awesemo.com. Let's move it over to Cleveland. 6.5-point favorites in Indy, 215 total. Everybody that has been healthy for Cleveland is healthy for this one. Markkanen is the guy that is still out. We saw Lamar Stevens be the guy that was removed from the rotation in that trio of us not knowing whether it was going to be Rondo, Stevens, or Dean Wade. It looks like Lamar Stevens was the answer to that trivia question. This one's pretty easy to project out. We've got Evan Mobley at 6,700 on DraftKings, projected for 11% ownership. We've got Jared Allen on FanDuel at 7,600, projected for 13% ownership. No one else is in double digits, and I don't really think that anybody else should be. Just a generally unappealing team here today.
Yeah, mostly. I kind of just see it as there's 3 guys here or 3.5 guys here that you can kind of take shots on in tournaments, but none of them stand out. Garland at 8,200 certainly gives you a high ceiling. You know that. He played about 30 minutes last game. I assume he's going to get a couple more here. LeVert could potentially have a negative impact on him. We assume that LeVert is in closing lineups. We still obviously don't really know how he's going to fit alongside Garland in terms of what it's going to do to Garland's rates. But even in the games this year where Sexton was out and Rubio was in, you still had a 25% usage rate from Garland. So I do still think he is a pretty high upside option. We know Jared Allen and Evan Mobley can do a lot of damage. And then Isaac Okoro playing 28 minutes, 3,600. I think you're probably going to have better value pieces tonight than Isaac Okoro. But he is cheap if you really need it.
It's LeVert's $8,700, $8,600 price tag is going to be pretty easy to ignore for a little bit of a stretch here. But yeah, there are just no priorities. Do you want to go to Karis LeVert for the revenge narrative?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I feel like the revenge narrative makes the $8,600 price tag a bit more palatable.
There's nothing I want to see more than in his second game on a team with Darius Garland and Allen and Mobley and Love, Karis LeVert just comes out there and is like, hey guys, I got this one, and just shoots like 40 times.
Hey, I played on Indiana for 3 months.
Yeah. He probably really hates them for saving his life too.
Exactly. I know I would. Then we go to Indiana. This team is a true puzzle. I don't even know where to begin to talk about Indiana. So Malcolm Brogdon continues to be questionable every damn day for what feels like the past 2 months. Isaiah Jackson is questionable. We know that we have no Miles Turner. I don't know if Jalen Smith will ultimately be available for the Pacers. They don't have guys that play his position, so he would be incredibly useful at this point. Terry Taylor is question. I mean, like, you know, if Isaiah Jackson is questionable and there's no Turner and O'Shea Brissett is the only guy that's like a power forward that's left at that point, it's getting pretty thin in the bigs. We don't have Justin Holiday to play fake 4 any longer. Like, I assume we're getting Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield in this one. So we're just adding more ball handling guards to this team. It's Stevenson and Dwayne Washington and Kiefer Sykes. We can call Terry Taylor whatever position we want, but he's not exactly like a big man. So I think they need Jalen Smith, as weird as this sounds.
I'm following you if Jackson and Taylor were out.
Right. I don't know who's going to be available for this one because they're running low on human beings that are big. I put everybody in because I don't have a damn clue what to do here. O'Shea Brissett got a ton of minutes this last time out. He is projected for 17% ownership on DK as of right now, $3,700 power forward center. I think whether or not, I don't even think it matters really who ends up in or out. O'Shea Brissett is at the very least a value play that you can take shots on just because of the position and the price tag. And he's upwards of being like a really decent play today. What do you like from Indy here? Is it just Goga? Is it, I have no feel for the Pacers.
Yeah. One other question. Have you seen, last I saw, they were still debating if they were going to play Tristan Thompson or buy him out. Have you seen a resolution to that?
I have not. I can't imagine they're going to play him.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking in terms of like other bigs they potentially might maybe have.
If you search for Tristan Thompson, all you do is find out bad things that he's doing in his private life.
Yeah. As of yesterday afternoon, the DraftKings update is Thompson is expected to be available to make his Pacers debut against the Cavs. Tony East reports, but that doesn't clarify. Like, are they saying like just because he was part of that trade, or are they saying they actually think he's going to make his debut?
Yeah, I don't have a feel for it here. I mean, it matters. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he plays.
I definitely would be surprised if he plays if Jackson and or Taylor are in. Where yes. I think the question is like, if they're out, do they just throw Thompson out there?
Well, I mean, I guess, you know what? I'm actually not surprised if he plays, because if the plan is to just buy him out, it doesn't make a damn difference if he's functionally able to be bought out or not. Like,
right.
Like, you don't, if he's healthy or not healthy, you don't give a shit if you're buying him out.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they need a front court body, there's no reason they can't just say, hey, go play 18 minutes and then we'll sign off and you can go, do whatever you want and we'll pay you. Yeah, so I kind of assume that he's available if they need him, but that he's not going to like take minutes from Isaiah Jackson or something.
Right. Like, if those guys happen to be out, but Jalen Smith is also available, I hope they play Jalen Smith ahead of Tristan Thompson.
Yeah, I would assume that they are. Basically, the way I see Indiana right now is it's really difficult to talk about because we have no idea who's playing. But what we do know is it's a difficult matchup against Cleveland. We have a 103 implied total for Indiana. I think if Goga is starting, which would probably suggest that the front court is shorthanded because I assume that they're going to start like Jackson if he's back. If Goga is starting at 4,700, he's fine. Other than that, and Brissett, like if Jackson is out, if Taylor's out, if Jalen Smith is not available, Brissett certainly at 3,700 offers some potential value. Outside of those guys in those situations, I have a really hard time wanting to get to anything.
I think we're on the same page. Like $7,600 Halliburton on FanDuel could be interesting. I don't know. If Brogdon's out, I think that actually becomes very interesting. Is like, that feels to me like the same way we would have been playing Karis LeVert for this team if Brogdon's out. How do you feel about Halliburton if we happen to just not have Brogdon? Because I don't think any of the other pieces matter to Halliburton other than Brogdon.
Right. Yeah, I mean, 8,400 on DraftKings in this spot. I'm still probably not getting there.
Yeah.
What'd you say the salary was?
76.
Yeah, I mean, it's better. It's still a bad spot. And like, I always get nervous, first game with a team too. Like, you never know exactly how guys are going to fit. But at the same time, like, if Brogdon's not playing, who's taking shots away from Tyrese Halliburton, other than Buddy Hield, who he's familiar with?
Right. Nope. Duarte is probably the only other guy that has any real usage, or if,
right.
Depending on how crazy Lance is feeling for the day.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I can see it. I still wouldn't be confident in it, but it can definitely go well for you.
All right. Ultimately, the long and short of it is this game starts at 7:00 and we need all of the news for Indiana at this point, because
we have injury news, we have trade news, we have everything that we're waiting on here.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Oklahoma City. 12-point dogs against the new look Philadelphia.
Oh, hang on a second. One other one. If Brogdon's out, are you interested in $5,100 Hield?
Yeah. I mean, he's 4,700 on FanDuel too.
Like,
I gave him 28 minutes. Yeah,
on this team.
He might. I mean, he could play 32, 34 minutes here
and shoot a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I should probably be more interested in him than I originally anticipated. Maybe I just didn't really see it because I do have Brogdon in. But
yeah, that's what it was for me. And then also, like, I've just gotten so used to just saying, like, oh yeah, Buddy Hield, whatever. But I mean, different team, and certainly could get back to the Buddy Hield that just shoots whenever he touches the ball.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. If Brogdon's not there, I mean, Buddy Hield should be getting a lot more run than Washington, Sykes, and anybody else they're trying to run out there other than Duarte and Halliburton. Like, that trio should play as much as they possibly can. They don't, like, the other options aren't as good. That's a good shout. That's something that you would easily see once you can project this team differently and not think about it at all right now. So glad you pointed that out. Oklahoma City, 12-point dogs in Philadelphia. Same guys that have been out for Oklahoma City are out. No Shea, no JRE, no Wiggins, no Muscala, no Roby. Let's talk through this team. Are there priorities here? We've got Kenrich Williams, 20% owned. We're grabbing random ownership to Baisley and Giddey and Mann, depending on it. They jerk these minutes around on these guys so much. This last time out, Trey Mann played 18 minutes. We ended up getting 30 out of Maladon. Poku comes from not playing to another 30 minutes. Again, I have no concept, but Baisley played 24. I don't know what to do with this Oklahoma City team, but I know I won't be confident in it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think starting with the good players, Giddey is basically just a write-off to me at this point because they want to limit him to around 30 minutes, not getting the $7,500 Giddey in 30 minutes. Dort is fine at 6,300. Baisley is fine at 5,800. Then you start getting to the cheaper guys where you can't be too confident in the minutes, but you do know that there's a lot of minutes available, especially with these front court guys where you don't have Muscala, you don't have Muscala, you don't have Robinson Earl, you don't have Roby, you don't have, Diakite's not on the team anymore. So last game you got Favors starting, but only playing 16 minutes. That was after he had played 26 minutes the game before. So no idea how many minutes he's going to play, but there are minutes available here for Kenrich Williams and for Pokusevski. Williams at 4,400, if you assume he's playing like 28 minutes, is decent. Pokusevski at 3,500, assuming he's going to play at least like 24 minutes, I think looks pretty good as well. Like, obviously those minutes can still go somewhere else, but Aaron Wiggins is out too. I mean, it's just, they are getting to a point where there's not that many other options. I guess keep an eye on KZ Okpala's status as well, because he potentially just becomes another random dude in the mix.
I don't really know how to hash out this Oklahoma City team. Basically, everybody can play in between 16 and 30 minutes, and every one of them is just sort of like, maybe. So good luck with your maybes. By the way, they're probably going to get their asses kicked by the Philadelphia 76ers today, who I assume are just not going to have James Harden. I'd be shocked if they're trying to get Harden to Philly as fast as possible to play the Oklahoma City Thunder today.
Yeah. So
he's taking this one off.
I think groups with OKC is probably important.
Fair.
Man, Jerome, Teo Maledon can only play like X number of minutes combined.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want more than, I mean, ideally, I probably don't want more than one, but I would probably set the rule at no more than two.
You ready for this? They played 80 minutes together in their last game as a group. Yeah. 64 the game before that.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, like, ideally, I'm just not getting more than one, but I think I would set the rule at two. Like, yeah. I mean, we just saw a game where Maledon and Ty Jerome both played 30 minutes. If that's the case, then you're fine playing either one. So I would set it at like max 2 there. I think I would also go max 2 on Williams, Pokusevski, and Favors.
Okay. I like it, and I know the people like it too. So Philly, obviously, without Ben Simmons, now that he's in Brooklyn, that affects nothing. Seth Curry, on the other hand, that affects a lot of things. That's 30. What'd you say?
I said it affects your boy.
It does affect my boy. That's 34 to 36 minutes out of the rotation here. Maxey questionable today, right hamstring tightness. Shake Milton also questionable, working his way back. Yeah, I'm not expecting to have Harden or Millsap available for this one, so I'm thinking we get Embiid with a Charles Bassey backup. Not that that piece matters all that much. Clearly, there's no issue going to Embiid, 11K on FanDuel, 11.9 on DK, but what are we doing with this Philly team? Does anybody benefit from Seth Curry not being a part of the team any longer?
I mean, I think Tyrese Maxey plays a ton of minutes. Not that like that's unusual, but I think you can give him even more playing time. I think Danny Green probably plays a lot, or you know.
I think the Maxey plays a lot of minutes thing is mildly dependent on if Shake can play today.
That's probably true.
Then, like, I think Maxey's just playing his normal 38 if Shake is in.
Sure.
And if Shake is out, then I think we could see 42 for Maxey.
Yeah, and then to be clear, I was thinking more like 36 to 38. Okay. Like 30, like I would probably give him 36 if Milton's in, and like 38 if he's out, but could certainly play more.
Danny Green, minutes have been down a little bit more as of late.
What'd you say?
His minutes have trended back down from like the 40 plus minute extremes that were there for at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, I mean they've gotten Green back in the rotation, and they're still using or could use Joe as well. So Danny Green, I think, potentially plays a decent amount. I wouldn't be surprised if he replaced Curry in the starting lineup and plays like 26 minutes. 3,300, you're still not going to be that excited about that, but you know, it's a reasonable value. Korkmaz, or not Korkmaz, Korkmaz, Thibault, Niang are all cheap. Basically, whoever starts out of Green, Niang, Korkmaz, they're going to be decent values.
Yep, I agree. And I don't think we have much to say that we need to say about Embiid. Thibault, I think, probably looks the most interesting just because he's 3,300 on DK. That's kind of a weird price. He's not a big fantasy guy, but should be the guy getting a lot of minutes considering they didn't want to get rid of him. How much Maxey do you want to get to at 7,700 if he's in?
Probably not much.
Okay, that's fair. I had to ask. Anything else for Philly?
I mean, just to reiterate, Joel Embiid is a really, really good option, and he should absolutely annihilate whatever Oklahoma City has in their front court.
Oh, you don't think that Darius Bazley can slow him down?
Not too confident, no.
He might eat Poku in one bite. It's just ridiculous. No House Advantage is the presenting sponsor of this video. You can use the promo code Awesemo when signing up to get up to $25 on your first deposit. I'm guessing there's going to be some weird player props that are available for you on No House Advantage today just because of coming out of the trade deadline. You're ranking them in a confidence interval. So your favorite is worth 10 points. Your second favorite is worth 9. So we've got, let's see, like Mason Plumlee, over under 9.5 rebounds. If Montrezl Harrell is in, that becomes a very interesting prop to take an under on. We just don't know the status at this moment. Kelly Olynyk, over under 14.5 points. That's another spot where might just be a snap under depending on the way these things break. Let's see. What else do we have here that could be interesting for today? I mean, Derek White is listed for San Antonio. Don't take that one. That much I could tell you. I assume that makes somehow DeJounte Murray look a little bit better, but we could dig into that if we need to. Anybody else that has a big effect on from the trade deadline? Not really, unfortunately. I was hoping we got some really weird ones, but it looks like they pared the list down quite a bit. So I'm going to hit you with one guy. Over under, I'm going to give you two different options. 13.5 points or 6.5 rebounds for PJ Washington.
13.5 points or how many rebounds?
6.5.
Oh, for some reason I heard 16.5. I was like, I'll take the under. All right, 6.5 rebounds
under
or
points.
You said 6.5 rebounds or
13.5 points.
I think I like the under on the points.
Yeah, so do I. I gave him 30 minutes and I have him less than that mark. And I think he's very live to play less than 30 minutes if Montrezl Harrell is available. If Harrell's not out, then it's just a stay away to me. But make sure you guys are signing up at No House Advantage using that promo code Awesemo. Beat your friends, not the house. We move it on. Game number 4, the San Antonio Spurs, 8-point dogs in Atlanta. Spurs now without a bunch of different dudes. Thad Young, meaningless since he wasn't in the rotation, now a part of the Toronto Raptors. Derek White, significantly less meaningless. He was playing a ton of time, now no longer with San Antonio. He is off to Boston, who we'll talk about in the next game. I don't know if we're going to get Josh Richardson for the Spurs today. I think that's a mildly important decision. But for right now, Devin Vassell, 23% owned on FanDuel, 40% owned on DraftKings at 4K. I like DeJounte Murray more than I like anybody else on this team. Now that there's no Derek White, I think he looks fantastic today. Clearly, I like the Vassell value. What do you like from San Antonio?
I'm with you on Murray. He's averaged 1.27 DraftKings points per minute with Derek White on the floor this year, 1.55 without him. Just looks really good. Like he always looks good anyway, but looks even better now without White. I think this also opens the door for 4K Devin Vassell to look better. You can roll the dice on a $4,200 Lonnie Walker as well. If Josh Richardson is out, both of those guys, their playing time should be even more solidified. But either way, I think that Vassell at 4K looks good and Walker at 4,200 could be good.
I'm on the same page there. I don't have much else, whether it's Keldon or Pirtle. Lonnie Walker will look a little bit better if Richardson isn't playing. I guess Josh Primo could look a little bit better as well, but no other priorities to me outside of Murray or Vassell.
Yeah, and so I don't even know how to read. So Josh Richardson is listed as out for the Celtics because trade pending. I don't know if that kind of just carries over to the Spurs.
Yeah, I don't know. The injury reports are kind of wonky with some of the guys that got dealt yesterday. They're not. Some guys are on their new team, some guys aren't.
Yeah, usually I assume that guys aren't playing the next day.
That is generally my lean. Some of this stuff is weird. Like it just depends on how likely they were to trade them, in my opinion. Where if that deal came out of nowhere or not, but there's not much for San Antonio right now.
They sent White to Boston because they got picked for it.
Yeah. He doesn't exactly fit the timeline of tearing it all down like they are. For Atlanta, Trae Young's pulling a ton of ownership, 31% on FanDuel at 9K, 20% on DraftKings at 9,900. Collins, Herter, Hunter, all in the teens as well. You can get a little bit of love to Bogdanovich, Capella, and Gallo. What do you like for Atlanta? Obviously a pace up spot here for the Hawks.
Did you realize how old Derek White is?
It's 27, I think, right?
Yeah.
28?
Yeah, he's 27. I just thought he was like 24.
Yeah.
For Atlanta, I mean, Trae Young at 9,900, I think, is the spot that obviously stands out. You're never going to be upset about getting there. Pretty favorably priced. He's a reasonable alternative to DeJounte Murray. Like if I like Murray more, but if Murray's getting a lot more ownership, you can certainly go to Trae Young. Kind of similar to like the John Morant and Kyrie Irving situation last night. Obviously, it didn't work out, but you were getting Morant at half the ownership. If you get a similar thing tonight, you can just go with the lower owned one in tournaments, I think. Beyond that, not a whole lot that stands out. Like John Collins at 6,600 is still fine. Capella is still not playing a lot of minutes. He's still tempting because he's 5,300, and if for some reason he does play a lot of minutes, he's probably going to destroy the slate. But at this point, I don't know how you can reasonably expect him to play more than like 22 to 24 minutes. Gallo, Herter, Bogdanovich, Hunter, they're all just kind of there. The only thing that stands out to me on this team is Trae Young.
Okay. I like the Herter value piece at 4,200 just because of the shooting guard small forward, but he's a guy that I tend to get to a lot in those cases. Anything else for Atlanta?
Nope.
Denver at Boston. Denver 5-point dogs in Boston, 217 total. So the big piece for Denver is we don't have Monty Morris. He is out with, I believe, a concussion. Nikola Jokic is 11.5 on FanDuel, 12.4 on DraftKings. The guy getting the most ownership right now is Bones Highland, 3,800 on DK, projected for 26% ownership. My question to you is this: who's taking Monty Morris's place today? Should we be projecting Facundo Campazzo for 30 minutes? Because he's been out of the rotation as of late.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how this goes because it can go a lot of different ways. You could get Will Barton, like they can make Will Barton the point guard. I mean, Jokic is the point guard, but the point being, like, they could go to Highland and give him a bunch of minutes, but they could also just skip over him and go right back to Campazzo. They could go to Bryn Forbes. They could spot start Reed. Like, there's a lot of things that they could, they could start Rivers. There's a lot of things they can do here. I think that Highland is a possibility, but looking at this team and saying, oh, it has to be Highland because of what Monte Morris does, I think is a huge mistake because Jokic fills in the playmaking. Will Barton can facilitate and handle the ball. You don't have to replace Monte Morris in this lineup.
No. When Monty Morris is off the floor this season, no one has played more minutes than Facundo Campazzo. Look into that however you would like. I mean, his role for the team is different now than it was earlier, but no one is out there more when Morris is not on the floor. I mean, they could just cast a really wide net, a couple 20-something minutes to Bones, 20-something minutes to Rivers, 20 minutes to Campazzo, and 20 minutes to Bryn Forbes, and all of a sudden nobody looks good.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll in part be answered by the starting lineup. I think if Highland starts, you really, in situations like this, you want to just have an idea of who the good fantasy producers on a per minute basis are. So it makes it easier to adjust to the starting lineup. If you get a starting lineup with Highland in it, they are indicating Highland's going to play more minutes. Highland's a good point per minute guy. You play Highland. If Campazzo is starting, they're clearly he's in the rotation and you assume playing a good amount of minutes. He's not a bad point per minute guy. You play some Campazzo. If Forbes is starting, he's kind of a little bit more on the fence because he's not a great per minute guy. But if it's somebody like Austin Rivers or Reed, you can kind of just ignore them. And then you're just playing still throw darts at backups like Highland game, but not as confidently. But the starting lineup should tell you a lot.
Anything else for Denver?
I guess also it is worth pointing out. So in the last game, Highland was the one subbing in for Monte Morris. So I think, if I had to guess right now, I would think I kind of just think they keep Highland on the bench though.
I think it's Campazzo.
Yeah, I think Highland could play more. I'm not confident at all that he's starting or even playing the most minutes out of this group.
No, I'm anxious to see what that ownership does if they go to Campazzo starting, just because 26% has to sort of assume that he's
and
starting.
Because the thing is too, and this is it goes back to why I'm saying that I think it's a mistake to just say, oh, Highland just moves up. What do they need in the starting lineup? They don't need Highland to come out there and be a one-man offensive show while he's out there with Nikola Jokic and Will Barton. They need that off the bench. They would probably rather have either Campazzo out there just as another facilitator, or Bryn Forbes out there to just knock down wide open threes when Jokic passes out of a double team. All of that stuff is more useful with that unit than Bones Highland out there running circles around everyone like he's Jordan Clarkson.
On the Boston side, I have no idea how many bodies this team is going to have today. Like I said, Derek White is taking his physical right now. He conceivably could be available for Boston tonight. They traded away a bunch of bodies. Best I can tell, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Williams. Their starting five is available. I don't know what Derek White is doing. We don't know. Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith. For right now, I think they have 8 active people. I don't know if Sam Hauser or Broderick Thomas will get to the team. They are in the G League. But if White and Tice aren't available and they don't get those guys from the G League, they've got 8 guys. So let's just say that for right now.
Yeah.
That is important.
Weirdly, how much does that matter for Boston specifically? Because their backup guys typically just kind of suck from a fantasy standpoint.
I think it's important for someone like Grant Williams.
I was going to say Williams and Pritchard, I guess.
Yeah. Just because, they're low 30s, Williams power forward center, someone has to soak up that additional playing time. And I think Williams is the guy that can move up and down the positional spectrum a little bit. But I mean, I think it's really great for I don't want to say that it like firms up these minutes because that sounds stupid, but like maybe you get 38 from Tatum, 38 from Brown, 36 from Smart in these cases, and it starts to look pretty good. I like the idea of getting to Boston. We just have to find out what active bodies they have. Clearly, feel free to play the starters.
Yeah, absolutely. The number of bodies they have, the impact is more so on, Williams, Pritchard, to some extent Al Horford, because Horford, like when they're healthy, sometimes you're getting those 27, 28-minute games. If they only have 8 bodies, you can feel a little bit more confident in Horford's playing time as well. But yeah, I mean, Tatum, Brown, Williams, Smart, all of these guys should be playing a lot one way or the other.
Again, pay attention to it. If Derek White happens to be in, he's 6,300 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings. I don't think that he's any sort of priority, even if that works out. But it will nerf the ability of getting to someone like Peyton Pritchard or Aaron Nesmith if we do get White. Let's go to the game with the biggest total on the slate. Minnesota at Chicago. Wolves are 4-point dogs, 241 total, which feels like one of the higher totals we've seen. Just to make this one easy, Minnesota has Patrick Beverley, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Taurean Prince, Naz Reid, and Josh Okogie all questionable. Don't really know what to do with any of that. So I've got everybody in. I'm happily going to get to some Towns, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, Patrick Beverley. I like those 4 guys. I don't know who's going to be playing for this team today.
Yep, same. My assumption is that they all play. Last game, you got all of them except for Beverley, but Beverley had played the game before that. I'm just assuming they're in. If they are, Russell, I think, looks the best at 7,400. Towns looks fine at 9,800 if you can get there. Beverley looks like a solid value at 5,100. Edwards is more of the like tournament flyer where he's going to disappoint at 7,800 a lot, but when he doesn't disappoint, he probably helps you win. So yeah, I think Russell's number 1, followed by Towns, Beverley, Edwards, Vanderbilt.
Ooh, you think Russell's 1? I have Edwards 1.
Yeah, and I'll take Russell over Edwards.
Okay. I mean, we're not talking about anything like a major gap. I think shooting guard, small forward is my tiebreaker there instead of point guard, shooting guard. But
the peripherals that Russell gives you in addition to his scoring, just get him ahead of Edwards for me.
That's fair.
And also, he played 36 minutes last game, which is a really good sign because he had sort of been like quasi-limited, and now he's clearly not.
So that's actually something that I missed. I had Edwards with 2 more minutes, and that is what was driving my gap.
Well, I think you should have Edwards with an extra minute or 2, but like last game, I think I had Edwards at 36 and Russell at 32 or something.
I'm at 34, 32 right now.
Yeah, like I think I'd probably go 36, 34.
Okay. I'm starting to think like 35, 34
Russell's rate
feels about
still
right.
Just get him ahead of Edwards.
On the Chicago side, it's possible we get Dosunmu back. He is questionable with coming back from the concussion. Otherwise, it's all the same guys that have been out are out. So it's DeRozan on DraftKings at 9,700. We've got Zach LaVine at 8K on FanDuel. We've got Kobe White at 4,400 on FanDuel. Vooch is solid across both sides. Is there anything new that we want to talk about for Chicago other than the fact that they're just in a great matchup?
Yeah, I mean, the only new thing, I guess, is if Dosunmu is back, then be careful with Kobe White. If he's out, then you should expect plenty of playing time from White. Again, White's production is another question. Like, he's still playing alongside guys that are going to have the ball in their hands a ton, but you got 38 minutes from him last time. He's 5,400 here. If Dosunmu is out, I think you expect a ton of minutes again. If Dosunmu's in, you're probably getting like 28 to 30, which is fine, but a lot less appealing. For the rest of the guys, though, I mean, DeRozan, I think, still number 1 out of the DeRozan, Vooch, LaVine group. Vooch 2, LaVine 3, but definitely pay attention to the ownership there. A lot of times we end up getting LaVine at like really low ownership while Vooch and DeRozan are a lot higher. I think that's like the correct way that it should be, but it also opens the door for LaVine to just be a great tournament play because he obviously has a massive ceiling.
Anything else for Chicago? Is this game the most appealing game on the surface where we don't actually know what we need to do with it? Or is that Charlotte, Detroit?
I think it's Charlotte, Detroit.
Okay. The 240 total is bonkers.
Yeah, this is like the Minnesota Chicago game is one of those where I think you're going to need a couple of pieces from it because guys are going to score 55 plus DraftKings points. But like on the surface, when you look at it right now, it's like, okay, I can narrow it down to like 8 guys that it might be, but I don't know which one. Whereas like the Charlotte Detroit game, looking at their salaries, it's a little bit easier to say like, okay, these guys are clearly underpriced.
Okay. Let's close it out. Orlando Magic, 12.5-point dogs in Utah. For Orlando, they acquired Bol and PJ Dozier. They cut Michael Carter-Williams and Eton Moore. None of those transactions or names are in any way relevant. They will all not play for the Orlando
Wait, you don't
Magic.
think they're playing? They're going to go with Bamba at the 3, Carter at the 4, Bol at the, or Bamba at the 5, Carter at the 4, Bol at the 3?
If he weren't hurt, maybe they would have. Jalen Suggs is questionable for today. That is important, but also meaningless for what we're doing right now. If he ends up out, I'll like Cole Anthony even more than I do right now. Cole Anthony is your best play in this game. Franz Wagner for 5,500 on FanDuel looks okay. To me, no real priorities for Orlando. I think we would need Suggs to be out to really bump anybody up.
Yeah, I wouldn't call anybody like a true priority. I definitely like Cole Anthony. He's playing a lot of minutes. I like Wendell Carter Jr. at 6,800. Wagner is fine at 5,700. I think I would go in that order. Anthony 1, Carter 2, Wagner 3. The one thing that maybe could potentially move Carter ahead of Anthony for me is just the positional eligibility. We've talked about a lot of point guards we really like today.
Yeah,
we've talked about a lot less Fords that we really like today. So I do think maybe, like, just from a roster construction standpoint, Carter actually ends up being a little bit more useful.
Tough matchup here for Orlando too. It's possible that Utah is getting Rudy Gobert back for this one. He is questionable now. Orlando not very good to begin with, so probably not the best spot to just be grabbing Orlando Magic guys. Let's close it out with Utah, which if Gobert is back, I don't know, Donovan Mitchell at 8,800 on both sites, and pretty much that's it.
Yeah, if Gobert's back, we're finally back to what we were able to do with Utah for most of the year and just be like, yeah, it doesn't matter, just play one of them and move on.
Yep. Bojan Bogdanovic, 5,500 on FanDuel, I think is the only other price that stands out here, but it's Utah. If Rudy Gobert happens to be out, are you going back to your boy Hassan Whiteside?
Yeah. Yes. Like, I don't think I'll be able to get him at like 7% owned on a 3-game night slate again. But so 2 games ago, Whiteside fouled out, but he played 14 minutes in the first half. Azubuike played 10. Last game, Whiteside did not foul out. Whiteside played 28 minutes. Azubuike played 20. I think it's very reasonable to expect some sort of like 20 to 22 minute for Azubuike, 26 to 28 minute split for Whiteside, even if he's coming off the bench. His salary is down. It went up $200 from last slate, but you're still talking about a $5,600 Whiteside. I had projected him for 24 minutes last game, still got him to like 30 DraftKings points and no ownership. I'm going right back there, especially if he's low owned. But either way, I think Whiteside's going to look good if Gobert is out. That's not to say you can't like roll the dice on Azubuike as well, but if the options are $4,500 for Azubuike or $5,600 for Whiteside, and I think at worst they're splitting 48 minutes, it's Whiteside every time.
All righty. Injury video, GPP video, deeper dive for you.
What are the odds that Jordan Clarkson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker get into an actual fight on the court over who gets to run the second unit?
You might be able to just swap their jerseys off of each other, and I might not even know what's going on. Yeah, that one. How do you stagger people that need to be staggered?
Right. And like Donovan Mitchell's probably just sitting there like, God damn it, now I have to play with one of these guys even more.
Yeah, it's not going to be ideal. I don't know. I didn't understand that one for Utah, but whatever. Maybe they think the defense could be a little bit better. Tons of content coming up from Adam for the rest of the day, I reckon. Deeper dive and live before lock are going to be incredibly important for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate having the 500 plus people that are here. Hit that like button if you haven't done it already. Shout out to No House Advantage for being the sponsor. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Have a good one. We're out of here. Peace.